Hi, I'm Sam Fessich from the EduMagic Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome. It is the Hitech Podcast. That's what you're listening to. If you thought you were listening to something else, you're wrong. That's it. Welcome. Yeah. I am Josh, one of the hosts of the Hitech Podcast, joined by my other host who almost said something and then got slightly cut off. But here he is.
Will. This guy.
Nailed it.
I'm here, present.
Yeah, we did it. Here's
my hand.
Yeah, we're here. There's even a digital raise your hand feature in the app we're currently using. We never use it. I don't actually know what it does. I know it raises your hand, I guess. Oh, look, there's something to say. Oh, that's fun. You bounce when you do that.
Hey, buddy, start talking for a little bit. Hey, what's up?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, this is a Hitech Podcast. Oh, hold on. Will has something to say.
So it's really great to have you all here this week. And ironically, while I just took over by raising my hand, how polite am I, Josh? I really just took over to hand the microphone back to Josh to introduce our episode, which is episode 140.
Yeah, we have done 140 episodes. That is a crazy fact about the Hitech Podcast. And this week on the Hitech Podcast, we have another guest joining us, Dave Radparvar from Reflection.app. If you listened to our episode last week, we introed it a little bit. I told you there's some fun things in here. Will, you, I know, are obsessed with this app. So we talked about this app on episode 53 of the Hitech Podcast when we were little babies, pre-100 episodes. Will and I didn't know what we were doing yet. We babs. We had way more time on our hands back then. We still don't know what we're doing. But we talked about Reflection.app, and since then, Will, you've used this app a ton, right? I mean, like every day, right?
Yeah, I had a streak going of 250 days in a row at one point. Yep.
Man, I'm the only app I've used 250 days in a row is Notion, and I do not get a streak. I do not get streaks for that. Notion, if you're listening, I would like to get some streaks. If I got streaks, hold on, real quick fun aside. So everybody on this podcast, if you've listened to us before, you know that I am obsessed with Notion. We are actually Notion affiliates now. So if you're interested in joining Notion, you can click that link. That is below our podcast somewhere in a description, wherever you're looking at this. You can join it, but they know that I'm obsessed with Notion. Will, the other day I decided, so Notion has AI features, and they added this feature where you can tell the AI to auto-create tags in your database for pages. So I decided to do this for my notes page, my notes resources area. I've had Notion since pre-COVID, I think, or maybe after COVID. It might have been after COVID I started really hitting Notion hard. I have a database of resources tied to projects and notes and everywhere. It's like it's tied to things. It's webbed. Okay, I never see the whole thing. Okay, ever.
Please
I just search.
Tell me you broke it. Please tell me you broke it.
I didn't break it, but it did tell me the total page number in my resources area, in case you were curious. And it is 908 pages.
Wow.
That is just my resources area, not my tasks. Anyway, so that's the only app, back to the story, that's the only app I think I've used nearly as much as Will has, is Reflection.
That's how we got here.
Will has used Reflection.app, yeah. So Reflection.app's a big thing. We've been working on this for a little while, trying to get somebody from Reflection.app. It's not that they've been ignoring us, it's just that it never worked out. I think this almost worked out a while ago, and then schedules just didn't come together. So Dave was we were able to align the schedules, and Dave joined us. And so this episode's really cool. We get to talk a little bit, not just about the app, but about their heart behind it, about why they think reflection is such an important part of not just education, but mental health, and the way that we use reflection. And that hits home for us as the podcast, for the app. So it's a really special episode. So I'm not going to take up any more of our time. Let's go join Dave. Let's talk about reflection, and let's hear about the feature that's been there all of Will's life that he just learned about today.
Okay, folks, we are excited to have with us in this episode Dave Radparvar from Reflection.app, and Holsti. We'll kind of dig into that in a little bit. Not sure what we're specifically representing today, but that's a part of the conversation. We talked first about the Reflection.app on episode 53 of the Hitech Podcast. It has been a while. We're excited to learn a little bit about where Reflection.app is. I know. We're excited to learn a little bit about where it is today and where we're going. And I'm just going to turn it right over to you, Dave. What is Reflection.app? How did you start it? What is the relationship to Holsti? A little bit of background.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Before I dive in, I just want to thank you guys for having me on the podcast, for doing what you do. I mentioned it kind of in the pre-roll before we started, but I love the banter between you two guys. I love the energy, and excited to be chatting with you guys here. Kind of dialing in a bit. I started a company called Reflection.app, and it's a guided journal that helps people with their growth and wellness. So we've got a bunch of different guides on the platform from different creators. A lot of them are authors, coaches, therapists. They've created different guides that help people who don't have much experience with reflection with their guided practice. So those guides are optional. At the most basic layer, we have a secure private journaling app. It's available on every device. And on a personal level, I'm just really passionate about personal flourishing, growth, wellness, and been active in this space for quite a while. As you mentioned, I started a company called Holsti. Reflection.app actually spun out of Holsti. We started Holsti about 15 years ago, mostly in the physical product space. So creating products that encourage people to live fully and mindfully, very much in the ethos of Reflection.app, but in the physical space. So Holsti still exists. It's very much focused on a membership and the community that they've built. So we've got about 1,000 people in there, and they get together on calls and discuss some core parts of what it means to live fully and mindfully, exploring themes like intention and gratitude. A lot of the same themes that we cover in the app, actually. So it's kind of the quick version.
That's great. That you nailed it. The elevator pitch, got it under 35 seconds. No, I really appreciate that. I'm going to just come right out and say from the front end, I'm a super fan. I still use the product. I've been using it since we promoted it on episode 53. I did it daily for a year or something. It's slacked, but incredible. But what caught my attention was that ethos that you talk about with Holsti, with the manifesto, but specifically in the Reflection.app product. And something that we've always connected that to education for is the role of the holistic human in the teaching and learning process. There's a development of education over time where things started to get more input content into brain, almost put data in learner. And I think we're now in a moment in education broadly, at least as a philosophy of teachers, of these are humans. They feel things, they respond to their environments, they see the world differently. And I felt like Reflection and Holsti resonates with that humanistic, that human respecting approach to education. So great friendship here. We don't even know it, but I'm excited to tease some more out and see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you said that, because especially with the digital product, it's hard to get across that human touch. And that is something that's really important to me. And it's like a big part of my own journey as an entrepreneur, but also as a human, and just really trying to do things that have an impact and in a really human way. And I feel like there's a risk with technology that it separates us and it can be a divider. But the idea of using tech for good in a way to bring us closer together or to understand ourselves better is something that is really important to me. So I'm glad that it comes through in the product a bit.
That's super cool. That's what I think was, and I really like the app as well. I think we were selling ourselves like Will just kept using it. I think the only reason I didn't keep using it is because I live in Notion, as we've talked about in the podcast. So I already had a tool I was doing stuff in. But I loved the prompting and the intentionality with the way you designed your app. And I was thinking, I remember when we talked back in episode 53 about your app, one of the things that struck me about what you were doing is that component, right? Using technology for good. And because I think we talk about this on our podcast. I think a lot of people look at technology and they go, technology bad. It's like, well, no, technology, it's being used. There's definitely a lot of bad it's being used for. But what really is happening is it's using in a lot of technology, especially in the mobile app sphere, using our natural kind of repetitive, patterns that we get into as humans to kind of navigate them a certain way. You can use technology to navigate them in a positive direction. I'm curious, we're already jumping off my original scripted questions I had. I'm curious,
was
that some of the intentionality behind the way you guys built in the system for prompting and kind of questions? Were you thinking along those lines of like, we're going to create this kind of flow for people in the app? Was that a part of it?
Definitely. A big part of like having prompts being front and center in the app, and whether it's an inspiring quote or a question, is that it's really hard to know where to begin. If you haven't journaled before, even if you have journaled a lot, just opening up that first blank screen, or if you're writing in a physical journal, which is also great, and just like that first blank page can be kind of intimidating. And so having something in there that, kind of just gets the juices flowing a bit, kind of sparks an idea, sparks a memory. I think it's a great way for people to start who otherwise, might just feel understandably a bit intimidated.
To Josh's point here about the usability, the actual like getting in the app and getting into it, had the ease of use, the prompts and stuff. I wake up every day. I'm a little ashamed of this. I'd like to maybe separate the moment from opening my eyes to picking up the cell phone. Maybe I'd like to put the cell phone somewhere else, but I open my eyes, I open my bank account because it has a streak app thing in it. If I get a streak, I get a penny. That's a fun part to it.
Okay.
And I open up a journal and I journal my sleep experience, right? And I'll tell you, 9 out of 10 days, I don't remember doing that. It's so easy. It's so straightforward. It's a kind of stage 2 mental processing thing that it just happens. And I go, wait a second, did I open the bank app today? Like, I'll think that 3 hours later. Like, did I do that? Open it. Yes, the streak was still there. But, there's some positives and negatives in that. What I have experienced from the positive side of that with the Reflection app is at 1:00, when my ping hits me, have you journaled today? I can click that or swipe it. And if I click that, it opens and I go right into the process of doing what I want to do, either following my own prompt, my own connection, or seeing that prompt right away. Some famous author, some famous, ancient theologian, philosopher, etc. Click it and think through what they were trying to address. So I see it in practice. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I was curious about the dream journaling. Do you have any lucid dreams? Or I've heard that dream journaling a lot can help with people who are interested in like lucid dreaming.
I'm not going towards that direction, but it's a part of it. So it's more like a health approach. I have, podcast, by the way, Will has horrible sleep.
Oh, bummer.
So it's
more like a sleep journal. Okay.
Right. Like, and part of it is like, did I wake up having nightmares? Like, I have not had that recently, thankfully. Yeah. But I count, like it's positive and negative. I count, like, did I wake up? How many times did I wake up? Did I see the clock? Did I not see the clock? Do I feel rested on a 1 to 5? Like, I'm journaling that kind of data to try and track with my health provider what may or may not be happening to me. So it's a process.
That's very interesting. And I think that's like a great use case for journaling generally, is things that are happening in your life, like tracking. My wife gets migraines, for example, and she uses her journal to kind of write down anything that was could lead to be a possible trigger, even if it didn't in that moment. If like later down the line, it was like, oh yeah, I had this, or the weather was like this, or the air pressure was like this, to kind of like try and be aware of those kind of things is a really great way to like just sense into not just your mind, but your body, and kind of like working backwards. So that's cool that you do that.
Mine is usually, did I have 1 drink or 2 plus drinks, or did I eat a cookie at 10 o'clock? Like, it's all relevant to my physical experience, but
I think the point is like you're bringing out patterns and doing that. That's what I think is interesting, right? Is that in the journaling and reflecting, you can learn it in different ways. Like Will's learning some of what's going on with the sleep. Your wife, in the case with migraines, looking in those areas. I was just talking with somebody else about a kind of journaling practice that's done in like managing projects and your daily stuff, for kind of journaling what you've done per day, and like you kind of learn patterns and see those. And so this is, I think, some of why Will and I connected Reflection app back, or even early in the podcast when we were talking, is because, as we've talked about, right, one of our big focuses is educational technology. And so one of the reasons we looked at it is because, as Will's commented, reflection we think should be a big part of education, but for a lot of different reasons. One, reflecting on, I think, emotions and things, realizing people are people. They're not just robots accepting information. Brains on sticks, as the joke goes. They're not that. They, they have feelings and things, as being able to incorporate that into reflection, but also just like even reflecting on what you did or how you did it. We know from learning science that like that helps people better engage, learn from their mistakes, learn from the engagements they've had. So that was one of the reasons Will and I were very interested in it, because we knew it could be a really helpful resource for people to do that. I'm curious, have you been hearing any folks in education using it, or have you thought about that at all, that like how this could be used to support learners in their process?
Yeah, the use cases that have come up most frequently are around helping kids have an outlet, really from like a mental health perspective, a place to express themselves, a place to feel safe and honest. From the learning side, the one example I've heard is about learning like a foreign language. So like journaling actually in another language is a really kind of low stakes way of kind of like practicing and giving you, if you're already journaling another language is like a great way to kind of dial in that language. So that's something I play with every now and then. Living here in the Netherlands, I don't speak very well. My Dutch is not very good, so
Really?
so okay. It's a good way to practice. But those are the use cases I've heard, mostly focused around kind of mental wellness, understanding core values, and also I guess from like a longer term career perspective. Like we have a lot of people who use the app during times of transition. So whether they're transitioning schools or transitioning careers, it's a great opportunity just to understand yourself better. And a lot of times that can change the trajectory of where you're going.
I this is just Will revealing himself day. When I've gone through mental health support and I'm seeing a counselor at this stage in my life, right? I turn to reflection because of what you said at the beginning. It's secure. It's behind biometrics on my phone, but I've read up on what you all do to secure the platform in the cloud and stuff like that. Mental health and mental safety, one of the biggest things about that is what's inside. And if it gets out, that's the fear people have. If someone knows what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, that's what brings anxiety into what is already its own mental health issue. And to trust that I can write down what I have to say into a tool like Reflection and know that it'll stay there, but it's accessible to me, top notch. Like I've really appreciated that. And I think you're right. When I talk to folks who were in education looking for tools that could serve this purpose, it's like, oh, you can run a Google Doc with students, right? You want students to run throughout the semester, keep some like adjacent thoughts or parallel thoughts to instruction while they're in class. Like you want them to journal and stuff. That's great. And in like English 101, that might be safe. But on the other side, Google Docs, it's very easy to share those links around. It could get shared in a folder. Once it's shared to the teacher, it could be wherever. It's like something like Reflection is going to keep it private and to the person who's doing the act if it doesn't have a public purpose, right? There's purposes to journal in public. I don't know. Maybe you can speak to that if there's a functionality that I'm not aware of with Reflection and more of like a community approach to journaling. But that's what I've had to talk through with instructors in the past is like, let's journal with a Google Doc if there's a public purpose. Otherwise, let's consider something like Reflection because it gives the students that autonomy and security to do the task.
Yeah, I definitely, I resonate with a lot of what you're saying. I think for me, and a lot of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this and why I've kind of dedicated a big part of, my focus and my time, my energy right now building this app is because I think journaling and having that safe space can really, it can provide an incredible lens to people who are otherwise, for lack of a better word, like suffering with what they're thinking and feeling. And that happens to me, I'll be honest, frequently. And I turn to my journal and find solace in being honest and having a place I can return to. And no matter where I am, whether I'm traveling, I can always come home to my journal and my thoughts. And what's most incredible, or one of my favorite things is, well, I guess there's two things. One is the catharsis in the moment. Just kind of free writing is a great catharsis in and of itself. But returning to my journal weeks, months later and realizing either how small and insignificant the thing I was stressed about is, or coming back and seeing, oh, wow, actually can approach that with a new lens now, with a new idea, with a fresh approach and fresh energy. And that's you can only get that perspective when you have that written down in the first place. There's nothing to return to if you didn't actually kind of commemorate that moment, that feeling, that experience at that time. So there's something really special about having a place you can come back to and kind of engage with your past self and plant seeds for your future self. It's like a time portal in a way to your past and your future. It's really beautiful like that.
I have to admit something. Ignorance. I'm revealing my own ignorance. When we talked about before this pattern of using the tool, like when I jump into Reflection, I like open it and hit plus. Like I'm just, that's what I'm doing, right? I want to write something. Yeah. So as you started saying that, Dave, I was like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if Reflection brought back old posts for you to read? It's the top thing right here. If I open the thing and if I look for 2 seconds, today, inspiration, insights, look back. It's the third thing.
Yeah. It's a little scroll down screen, there.
I'll just admit I've never stopped and taking conscious knowledge of like, oh, that is trying to drive me back to that practice, because that is one of the best parts of reflecting, is not only reflecting in the moment, but like you said, taking the time to look back again. So I'm going to use a feature I haven't been using, which is to look back.
If it makes you feel better, Dave, that is 100% on Will, not your app. Because if there is a classic thing that Will does over a period of time, it is learn like the most complicated features on an app and like completely miss like a basic button for like years. That is like a thing. So
I love that level of focus, though. I feel like that's also just like, you're in there to do. You're not getting distracted. You got it done and you got out of there. So that's also something very admirable.
I can be very tactical. So we're a little bit in this already. I've already revealed my big love for the private diary, the lockable, easy to organize, that kind of stuff. We just found out that I really like this feature of looking back. Are there any other top features? Is there something people need to know? I know you have the prompts and things like that. They'll help folks actually answer questions and process. But what are some top features behind Reflection that you'd love to highlight, or something you're using on your own day to day?
Yeah, there's one there's a couple lesser known features, and they're kind of my favorite. But they're not easy to find, and we're going to work on ways to make them more obvious, kind of like the look back feature. But one is called Depth. One's called Depth. It actually doesn't live in the app, but we made a standalone website. It was kind of like an alpha, like a test, like how do people enjoy this feature? It's our first integration with AI, where you can write one sentence or a couple of words about how you're feeling in this moment, and then it'll provide you back 3 very specific questions to reflect on. And it is a very simple, from like a technological like integration, like it's not anything mind-blowing, but what it is it's very effective. So you could go to depth.reflection.app. It pulls up like a little landing page. There's just like a small text box there. You could write anything. For example, I'm feeling nervous about an upcoming meeting with my boss. And then it'll come back with 3 very specific questions with a slight bend towards a growth mindset. And it'll help you, either reflect on that experience. Like 3 questions you might get back would be, when have you felt this way in the past? And what have you done to overcome it? If your meeting with your boss goes perfectly, what does it look like? Like some like very specific things that when you start jamming on those, all of a sudden, like the anxiety, concern that are sometimes packed into those experiences, you can start unpacking them. And I use that actually quite a bit. And it's one of my favorite things. We're excited to integrate it into the app this year. It's actually one of our big focuses for this year is bringing that into the app. But right now it's a standalone website, but still very effective.
I just want it right now. I'm gonna go use it in a web base. I mean, like now I'm thinking of like a couple of recent journals and experiences I went through. I'm like, I wonder what AI would help me with there. I wonder what it would challenge me on. That'd be a fun investigation.
Yeah. That's a cool use of AI. Will and I were talking about, we were just at a conference, and the running joke for us at these conferences and things of being a podcast is like, we're gonna play. It was gonna be a water drinking game for those listening, because Will needs to sleep. So it was gonna be basically a drinking game. Every time we heard AI, we needed to drink water. Like that was the running joke at the conference. And there's a lot of different really cool uses out there. But like the thing that I think I've been looking at is like, okay, what are getting beyond some of just the like asking AI questions and getting like summaries or generated, like what are some of the creative ways you could use it? And I'm really liking this idea of like what you're explaining here, really it being the question asker. Like it's taking what you're doing and helping you dig deeper in a way that you might not just do on your own if you were just like typing in information. That's super cool.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that the same thing. Like we think about the power of questions a lot. Like the right question in the right moment can really change the way you think about something. And so really trying, from a wellness perspective, we're trying not to be prescriptive about anything, but really just provide questions for people to go deeper. And I think that is, I'm like very happy with how it turned out. Because I feel like it is a tough balance sometimes integrating some of those like new features while still being like true to our core ethos. So yeah, I'm glad it resonated.
Yeah, I think that naming it Reflection, 2 thumbs up, 5 out of 5 stars, 10 out of 10. The only other name it could have been would be Socrates, and that's you don't need that. There's a lot of baggage with the Greek philosophers, and some people don't understand either. But there's something to what it does that I think is just so beautiful in a Socratic method of challenging, but but at the same time helping to grow. It's not about challenging to change necessarily. Change can happen, but it's what step do you want to take today? How do you want to be a little bit different? How do you want to be a little bit better? It's not about, and I that's the ethos I receive as a user of the platform. I don't see it as like a beat you over the head. How are you going to make your 10 goals to become a millionaire stuff? Like that's not the point. It's about becoming the better self and working through what you've got going on. So
yeah, definitely.
So we've got depth. Are there any other top-notch items that are coming in?
Yeah. There's 2 other features that I'll mention that are also maybe relevant for a lot of the listeners because they can be used in the educational space. They're used a lot in the coaching space, but it's really easy for anyone to create a question or a series of questions and then turn that into a link that'll open the app on any device. So for example, like Will, if you've got a question, you're sharing it with you could share it with Josh, you could share it with a client. You could just write out that question or series of questions. It's at share.reflection.app. You hit a button and it generates a link. And so with that link, it's like a short little link. You could send it to someone on WhatsApp or an email. When they tap that link, it'll preload the journal, their own private secure journal with those questions pre-filled.
Wow.
So it's a really cool way of like, if you have an evening kind of journaling practice, or if there's questions you really want to share about whether it's something work related or personal related, you can easily turn that into kind of like a guide on the fly and anyone can use it. So that's like a really cool way of sharing questions with other people.
I'm feeling mildly prescient today. Like I mentioned earlier, like, if there's a communal feature or something that would bring more community to a very private experience. And there it is, share. And it sounds like that's another thing that we build at share.reflection.app. So that's a kind of an alpha that's working into the primary functionality.
Exactly. Yeah. With some of these things, it's just easier to kind of spin them up on web, see how people like them, see how they use them, and then integrate them in the app. But yeah, that'll also be coming in this year.
Cool.
That's super cool. Yeah. There's a lot of advantage in being able to share with other, like Will said, there's a lot of advantage to keeping it private, but a lot of advantage, especially like you said, in education, being able to also share that, like be collaborative in that area. There's always a fine line trying to find what you want to do in education with that, because if you share, then there's a chance a student won't necessarily share the things they should probably be sharing in the journal. So it's always that fine line. But there are definitely places where like you're not asking them to reflect on super private. You're asking them to reflect on what they saw in the video last week. Unless that brought up something crazy that is something that could absolutely be shared. That's super cool.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that feature, we've added the ability for anyone to share their private response. Like that specific entry can be shared via a private link. And the end user could turn off that link at any moment they want. So for example, if I have a evening journaling practice and I was had gratitude for my wife, I could turn that into a public, it's like a private, it's kind of like one of those Google Doc links where it's a long link. Only if you have the link, you can access it. I could share it to her, send it to her on WhatsApp. She could read it, and I could disable that link hours later. But it's a nice way of kind of like sharing a very specific post with someone for a limited period of time. So a lot of coaches and therapists use that to both send a question to their client, get the response back, like in prep work or post work after a session. So that's like a really nice use case of it.
Yeah. This is we've as we always do, we've blurred some of our questions, and this has been great. We're finding out not only what your top features are, your interests, but like what's coming. These are all built and working, but coming to the app over time. You you said it is on all platforms. So it's iOS, it's Android. Go to the website for anything. Everybody can use it.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. I guess a closing question then would be like, what's from the Holsti Manifesto, which started you, folks, go read it. It's very interesting. To where you are today, what's the growth that you're working towards with Reflection? Is this something you want to be the Reflection app? Is that the like kind of all-consuming goal, or is there something you're trying to reach people with as you develop the tool?
Yeah, that's a great question. I worked on Holsti for 15 years, and Reflection.app just started, and I'm planning to commit at least the next 15 years of my life to it as well. So I'm definitely thinking in longer term, big picture. It's been such a valuable tool for me and valuable practice for me, and I'm really keen on bringing it to as many people as possible. I think there's so many ways we can kind of grow the app and grow the potential. Like you said, kind of becoming the go-to de facto place for reflection is something we're really excited about. We're building one of the largest curated journaling libraries with different guides, different creators. So bringing in a guide for every person to meet everyone on any part of their journey. So whether they're in school and they're having questions about like navigating social situations, or whether they're a bit older and they're navigating a career transition, or even navigating anxiety or self-confidence, grief, you name it. But just having a guide from someone who's asked those questions of themselves, who's had that experience, and then being able to share those with people is something that we're really passionate about. So I do really think that there's a guide out there for every person, and being able to bring them all in one place and making them accessible is something I'm really excited about.
So the final pitch is folks can go to their app stores du jour, or Reflection.app is the website.
Yeah,
they can use it today for free, and we're in a freemium model, right? So there's very good, easy to write access for just general text. And then if they want like images and certain things, there's a premium tier. Is that the case?
Yep, exactly. And I'll note, because it's something that's important to me, is we never wanted cost to be a barrier for anyone. So we've got a pretty generous scholarship program. If anyone feels like they would benefit from the premium version, but they can't afford it, they can just reach out to us, hello@reflection.app. And we're always happy to help. Of course, we're happy for people to support us. We are an indie app developer, and of course, love people who are supporting our app. But it should never be about money, especially when it's about something like health and wellness. So.
That's beautiful. Thank you for leaving us with all those links and emails. That's the stuff we'll put in the show notes and make sure it's available to everybody. But we really appreciate you taking the time with us, Dave, just to give us this insider conversation on the tool. But also we dug into it a little bit, like how you're using it, how I'm using it. It's a really great conversation. So thank you, Dave.
Love it. My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for jamming. I love talking about this kind of stuff. So I welcome it anytime. If you guys have any questions, thoughts, you can always hit me up anytime.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, we'll wrap the episode here in just a second. Otherwise, hang on. Okay, folks, if I look at it, it's still there. Look back. The feature is top of my page. I really enjoy this feature now that I've been actually reading what's on the homepage of my app. Jokes and laughs aside, Dave, thank you again for joining us. Thank you for bringing the mission of Holsti, the mission of Reflection app, to us and sharing it with our audience. We really appreciate what this tool is out to accomplish and how good it is at accomplishing it. If you'll remember, folks, some of my top qualities are free, secure, useful, and Reflection app checks all three of those boxes. What I do know, I will promise the listener at this moment, is we started touching on some of those conversations that were not just app focused in this episode. Mm-hmm. Of course, we heard a little bit about what it's doing and the new tools, the new ideas coming out, what we're hoping to get integrated. Awesome. Love it, Dave. Keep innovating, keep pushing into it. Dave also is really ready to jump in the deep end with us on the content, on reflection, on mindfulness. And I've already pinged him, and he's already committed to coming back in the future to just do that with us, right? We love talking about people's apps and promoting good things for you to use, but that's a rich conversation that I think all of us would be all the better for participating in. I know my journey with mental health and mental health safety, if you will, like becoming better with my own self, has been important practice. And looking inside and taking time to reflect and journal is a critical step in that process. Mm-hmm. So I know Dave will be back. We're looking forward to that. But just a thank you, and awesome how how easy this tool is to use. It is not meant to be difficult. This is not a learning management system. It does not have an engagement tool. It is not giving you analytics. Folks, we're pushing you the Reflection app to use with your students if you need them to reflect. If you need your students to have a safe and secure space to journal their learning, journal their health processes, journal whatever it is. I can think of human growth and development courses where you have to learn about your biology and yourself. Like if you need to do sleep studies and sleep reflections, you could use this journal so the students could do that and have that information and be secure and protected. Of course, you could also just encourage folks to do it as a icebreaker. Hey, we're all just going to use Reflection app this semester. Enjoy telling me the prompts you get every day. You don't have to tell me what your answers are, but like if something comes up from Aristotle or Socrates or some other theologian or philosopher I can't think of, tell me who they are. Right, but that's
I love the getting slightly stuck. And you got two of them, and you're like, I can't. Some of the other ones I couldn't help.
Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Spa. Those are the three Greek.
If you
but
will,
the platform uses tons of literary folks and
it's a
authors,
big
not just Greek philosophers. So
exactly. I think what I really appreciated just like the focus on the reflection component. I mean, we would have guessed that coming out of the app, but like this is one of those apps Will and I think can both attest to. We've had apps, we've talked with apps, we've used apps before that they have like a thing they do, but they're not like super passionate about the philosophy behind it, right? And Reflection is definitely one of those that is the opposite of that, where it's like this app flows out of Dave's passion for people doing this and having a free space and a comfortable space to do this. Like Will and I talked about that, like, you can journal in a Google Doc, but it is a different thing and the security level is different and you're giving it your own thoughts, right? And if we're going to have students do that, sometimes we need to allow that private space to do it. And that's why I think Reflection app isn't necessarily an educational tool, but it is something that can be used in education. So I highly encourage you, if you're planning on doing any kind of reflection type of activity with your students, journaling activity, if it's something that would be done better where they don't share everything with you, they're just doing it throughout the class, check out Reflection app. Think about using Reflection app to do it because their heart is with helping people do that. And I think that's something we could find a way to incorporate into how we're teaching and educating our students.
Yeah. 10 out of 10. We love it. I love it. I've been using it forever. I still use it. I'm ready to buy premium and I don't even really need it. Like if you want to do pictures, you want to do like custom tags and stuff, those are premium features. For free, you can have unlimited text notes. And that's what I use it for. So I really don't need more than that, but I'm curious, I'm just curious.
You can take a picture of your face, like the feeling you're feeling every morning, like see what your face looks like. I think that's,
so we kind of joke, but that's not a bad practice necessarily. There's reasons you might do that. So.
Yeah. I would do it just to see how long my beard is each day. Like just kind of get like a test, see where I've got
pictures over time.
Yeah. See how it's going. It'd be a nice time lapse.
Make sure you head over to Reflection.app. That's their website. Look up the Reflection app in your Apple Store, Google Store, all that crap.
And check out their depth AI feature as well. Yeah, go check out Reflection.app, but also I just want to re-highlight again, check out their AI feature, depth.reflection.app. We're going to share that on the website as well. And go check that out.
Thank you, Dave. This is a wrap on episode 140. Thankfully, I set up my Notion so I can read more than one thing at one time, because the next thing that's in there was a little confusing. But the real episode 141 that is coming next is going to be Lauren Hale. I think that's how we pronounce it. We haven't yet met Lauren, so forgive me, Lauren, if that's incorrect. We'll get that corrected in the future. At Stickity, this is someone who saw a need and decided to fill a need. So Lauren has a tool that she built, and it has a team that's behind her that's for like Google Docs and stuff. We're going to learn more about what it is and how it can motivate students, but we don't know more than that, I'll be honest. So we're excited to hear from Lauren and learn about this tool and what's going to be available for you and other teachers. As always, find us on the Twitter and YouTube. Josh says, I'm not going to call it X until it's not X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm not going to call it X until they can come up with a better verb than tweet, right? So if it's Twitter, I'm going to tweet something. If it's X, I am not going to X something. Like it doesn't work. So as long as I'm tweeting things, it's Twitter. That's at Hitech Podcast. Our email, as always, inbox@hitechpod.us. Website, hitechpod.us. Every single one of our episodes is up there on an episode page. Many thanks to Josh for bringing that content to us every week. Thank you again for joining us as we look at another week of continuing to learn what it looks like to harness technology, whether it's for academics and intentional scientific stuff or reflecting and mindfulness in the classroom or online. Until next time, folks, see ya.
See ya.